And I'd like to call to order the Curriculum and Student Development Committee of Madison Board of Education. The committee is comprised of Kathy Miller, on my right, and I'm Steve Penn, and Marianne Connolly, who is not with us this evening. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to our Assistant Superintendent, Gail Dowling-Hench, to introduce what curriculum items are on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Penn. I appreciate it. And thank you for your time this evening. Hi, Marianne, welcome. Hi, Seth. We just have to give you board members turn. All right, that's okay. We'll just our beginning. So to frame the work for this evening, we have a ton of different courses and different disciplines up for adoption this evening. And as the committee is aware, usually we go in cycles and we have a very distinct cycle for adoption. These are some courses that were in cycle and needed more time to be worked on, either because there were so many courses that we were working on for adoption at the same time, which is true of a lot of them. There's, just so many courses that we moved to curriculum and adoption. So the team asked for more time to do it. There were some of them that we are producing tonight that are revisions for courses that we had received feedback and we wanted to boost and change in different directions. So I introduced Michelle Horn and her role to this committee earlier this year. So Michelle, again, is a literacy coach who has a vast array of experiences with curriculum writing and working with different teams. And she was taken off of her role as a literacy coach this year to serve in the capacity of curriculum generalist. And she has learned a lot about a lot of different disciplines that she'll be talking about this evening. So Michelle has worked with all of these disciplines in various capacities, some closer than others. And she might be introducing to you some of the courses such as acting workshop. That is something that she worked on with Selena De Silva and Claire Stone. And she'll give you that overview instead of Selena. So some of our coordinators who you've met before opted to not attend this evening. I don't know if it was the bitter cold or January, but put their course in the good hands of Michelle to present to you this evening. So I'm going to introduce Michelle and give you an overview of what you have in front of you this evening.
Thank you. Let's start. Okay, so the first one, very exciting course that was created with Dan Grenier and Eric Becker is called Sports Performance and Nutrition. Eric was super, if you know Coach Becker, the football coach, super excited about creating this course that will get up and running for next fall or be offered for next fall. It's a CT elective for one trimester. It offers this one some practical life skills and hands-on experiences that are connected to not only prepping and cooking and making nutritional choices, but also connected to ways to improve athletic performance, body composition, recovery. I do think one of the great things about this course, whether you're an athlete or just into fitness, that it's very current for students. And I expect to see a lot of kids sign up for it. He's super excited. So this is one of the courses that we'll be going through tonight.
And I have to say, I think Mr. Becker would agree that it was not a natural thing for him to write curriculum. So Michelle played a pivotal role. She even met him on the field this summer to do some writing. Anything to get the course, ready for adoption. So it has gone through CRC and is here before you tonight, having been totally vetted and facilitated to the criteria that we need today.
He had super great ideas, come with a wealth of background knowledge, and then we just had to formalize it into our curriculum documents and get it ready for, all the different things that we expect in our curriculum. So I'm excited for him and for the students at hand. The next one here is,
Excuse me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was this a result of student interest? How did this item?
Both. So I know Dan is really good in that department on taking student feedback as well as knowing what's current and thinking about the career pathways. And so I believe it was a combination of probably both.
It was actually a student survey, so there were a lot of courses that CTE surveyed students for interest in. Some of which they were really surprised that didn't make it over the threshold, but there was a lot of interest in this course, and also really it's international finance was the other course that CTE added this year. And actually, this course as well, the one that is on the board now for adoption, is called Acting Workshop. And just before Michelle describes what Acting Workshop is, this is based on student feedback and a lot of surveying students. It was called, there was a course offered called Dramatic Workshop 1 at the high school. And it was not as, I guess, as engaging and as encompassing of the components that students wanted for a total stage experience. So out of that, I think when the board heard the program of studies for Daniel Hand, it was called Dramatic Workshop, but we are actually asking the board to adopt it under the title of Acting Workshop, because it differs so much from the prior course Dramatic Workshop that we want students to have the opportunity to take it if they took Dramatic Workshop. So in fact, the title of this course would be Acting Workshop. And just as of today, I know another course that Michelle and the drama department at the high school are working on is stage production. That goes at a different angle. And that's also based on student input. So I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Selena and Claire Stone were a big part of this particular course, and a lot of feedback was taken both from parent and students to get this going. So you can see up here, Selena wanted definitely for you all to know kind of what the major changes were and then the reason behind it. So one of the big things was the location of the course, moving from the English classroom into the actual dining and assembly hall. So that's the stage provides a more authentic environment. So why wouldn't we be doing it there? So that's one of the big changes. Another thing is to update all the units to reflect concepts related more to that stage direction, stage production, and acting, where prior it wasn't. And that update of the units reflects the environment change and allows opportunity for active engagement and collaboration with the students. And finally, there's a summative assessment that is a formal stage production, which Selena was describing to me today, and we were kind of going over, which could easily include opportunities to align to hands-on stage, which is a Daniel Hand High School after-school club. And that the reason for that is to create a curriculum that may allow students to engage in some sort of extracurricular activity that would benefit school culture and climate. So this one's really exciting, and I think another one that's gonna be a great elective for students. The next one. Here we go. In the English department, again, alongside of Selena and English teachers, grade 9 English teachers, is one of the things that was done over the summer is we swapped the core novel To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee with a more contemporary novel, Just Mercy. And we might have talked about this maybe early in the fall, or I don't know if we mentioned it, but one of the big justifications, I was part of a lot of those early conversations, is students really struggled to see the application from To Kill a Mockingbird in the modern world. And so students are now they were able to empathize with Lee's characters, but couldn't necessarily connect the issues to the modern day. That book, To Kill a Mockingbird, is still offered as an opportunity for students to enjoy book clubs. And kids have taken and used that book as a classic. So I just want you to know that. And then
I just want to,
Yeah.
when I went through the, I watched the movie. Well, because I didn't have enough time
Yeah.
to read the book. I thought it was great.
Yeah. Now,
I will read the book.
Yeah.
You always just like a student.
in the deep.
But I wanted to see what
Yeah.
what the swap was.
Yep, that's good,
Thank you.
yeah, and I know in conversations with grade 9 teachers recently, I was just with that department a few weeks ago. It seemed to go over wonderfully with the students, which is great.
Yeah,
So
and I spoke to one of my
Yeah.
daughters, is 11th grade, and she had read, I said, when did you read Kill a Mockingbird? And then I told her a little bit about this book. She said, well, it seems like it would be more relevant to the time.
And we see the data, they're 2014 as opposed to,
And they reference To Kill a Mockingbird
Yeah.
in the
Mhm.
Yeah. Anything else on that, Dale, that you want me to?
No, any other questions
Any
about
other
that? That's an example of one that's kind of out of sync with our adoptions, but something that the department felt strongly about. They really wanted to make these two units more relevant for our kids, and I think they did a great job at it. And I think it also speaks to their interest in making sure that the curriculum is current. And also in keeping with their beliefs and what's happening in the classroom. So I'm pleased that they produced it.
So when we say it's a book club option, what is the book club?
So there's usually several books that are offered in the context of a book club. So students might have 5 or 6 book clubs options that they can pick. They pick that book and they commit to a process of reading that book just like you would as an adult. And talking about the key components of it, usually under some sort of framework.
Is this a credit course or this is a?
Oh, yeah.
extracurricular
This is part of core
This is core
English
Yeah.
curriculum.
Book club.
Book clubs, and book clubs are actually part of our practice in Paulson as well. And at Brown a
Yeah,
little
at
bit, I
Brown
think
a
at
little
Brown
bit.
we
For
have
the
some
start of
clubs
this, yeah.
too, yeah, that starts it, but the idea is that we're building lifelong learners and part of that is choice within context. So we make sure that we know the books and vet the books and that they're under some sort of a teachable point that we're teaching in the unit. So there's a purpose for reading those books, but it also calls upon students not to keep reading something they already read or engage in something they always wanted to read.
And Gail, we make all of the choices for book clubs available online, right? So that parents and families can, or we make.
I don't know if this one
plans.
has it in the.
I remember, and again, I could be wrong, in that overview, I think there's a list, but it says not limited to, so
Right.
that we have.
Usually have the bulk of it.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's enough that it can spark a discussion in a
It can-
family that may have concerns about, you know, children reading advanced material or
Absolutely.
something.
Usually if it's anything at all that parents would want to weigh in on, we always put it in the overview.
Yeah.
And I have in the past.
And we definitely had that conversation a couple of weeks ago, so I'm pretty certain it's in there, yeah.
Thank you.
So next we have Carol and Amy Faish to talk to us a little bit about math enrichment. I know back in September when we met, I think it was around September 3rd. There were some questions about some of this enrichment curriculum that was created, so I'm so excited to have Carol and Amy, who's been with us for, I think, 8 years in enrichment, so I'm gonna turn it over to them. I don't know if you want me to go to the next slide or stay here.
No, I think you could stay here.
Okay.
We have enrichment, we've had it for 8 years in grade 5 and 6, and then when grade 4 came to Brown, we added it into Brown also. And this is an opportunity for kids to be challenged and do problem solving beyond the differentiation that's already happening in the classrooms. It occurs every other day during their math class for about 40 minutes. So their math class is just under 70 minutes. This is a part of that. And they just sort of slip out of class and go to Amy and then slip back in. We hope, that's what Amy's trained them. And 2 key points that I want to point out about our program in general is, first of all, fluid grouping. The kids that go to enrichment have been determined by pre-testing that we do every unit. So every unit that we have, we pre-test and we see who might benefit from even more enrichment. We like that someone's not pigeonholed for the year. And they know that sometimes they've got a strength in math and then other times maybe they need a little more work than they did in that previous unit. Another important part of it, this enrichment, is that when we designed it, we wanted to make sure we didn't encroach on later curriculum. So what Amy's doing in the classroom in grade 5 is not going to be taught in grade 7 later, because these quick students do not need to hear it twice. So that was a big part of it. It's a little bit tricky to do, and we're proud of that. So now Amy's gonna tell you a little bit about a typical day. Let's look at that next slide to make sure that I shouldn't be. I guess it could have been there when I was.
So there's the colorful version, but what I just chosen. Yeah, so, like on a typical day for the enrichment students, we do talk at the beginning of each unit about the idea that they should. Some years I really emphasize sort of like they should enter and leave their classrooms like a ninja. You know, you slip out, you don't disrupt the learning that's happening in your regular classroom. You need to be somewhat independent about that. Leave the room, and they come from all 4 math classrooms and they gather in my space. Often I randomly group them, but it's all different ways that they're put together into groups in my room. And then we are able to engage in things where it's very open-ended, and instead of focusing on, as some of them might expect when they first come, oh, I just pre-tested out of the multiplication and division unit, and they think they may come and I'm going to just multiply and divide bigger and bigger and bigger numbers. We do other things. The whole curriculum is sort of based on a STEM approach, so that instead of someone coming who was, as Carol said, you know, already really strong at multiplication and division, I just keep getting them more and more ahead of everybody. We pull back and say, well, let's think about something completely different in here for a while. There's a lot of focus on the profile of a graduate type of things. So perseverance, which I have to work hard to provide opportunities for some of these students to persevere because they're used to it coming very easily for them. So we'll have something like, for example, in the Yeti unit that it's called the Yeti. It's a scaling up and scaling down unit that we do with 4th graders, and they might come in and I might play I Spy with them. But if you've ever tried playing I Spy, instead of saying I spy the color black, you have someone say to you, I spy something that is 8 centimeters long. And then they have to try to find something, and they go around and measure, and they develop a better eye for estimating things. And then you might have to ask them, depending on the level of the group, okay, great, you're getting that, you've got the linear measurement. I want you to spy, I'm spying something that is 16 grams. And again, they have no idea, but they persevere through it, they try, they fail. And after they found one thing, they can sort of build on that knowledge and continue to develop their understanding. And it's open-ended, so it's pretty neat that although we have a goal in mind for each unit, there is a PBA of some sort, there's a product that they create to sort of demonstrate what they've learned. There's a lot of open-endedness to it, so that I can kind of follow what their group, or even just, there's a lot of times when there's a question asked and I go, I don't know, why don't you find that out? Give it a try. And I have that freedom to do that with them. And to also really press them into the idea that don't look at me for the answer. You're here to figure that out. And it's a lot of fun. So I enjoy it. I do think that they get a very good challenge out of it. And we do talk about, because there's a piece of this, as I said, to profile the graduate, it's the perseverance, it's the communication, it's collaboration. It's also being a good citizen, so there's some conversation at the beginning of every unit about the idea that I'm not interested in you showing off or bragging, and in that sense that we're not gonna get anything done here if we're all trying to prove who's the smartest. That's non-productive. So sometimes we even just do like day 1, everybody put your hand up, bend your elbow. Okay, Charity knows I'm smart, I don't have to prove it, and now I can just get to work and do hard stuff and not have to prove that over and over. And then also that we don't brag about being in enrichment. You're allowed to be happy to be there. I hope you're happy and enjoy it. But sometimes you're in, sometimes you're out. I wrote down a few numbers. You know, this year so far, 57 different students have been part of enrichment groups in 4th grade. As you might guess, I don't have 57 kids in the room at one time. That means some were in one unit and not in a different one. 41 different 5th graders have been in enrichment so far this year. 6 of those were not in 4th grade at all. Students will come for a single unit, 2 units, you know, depending on what's appropriate for them. Throughout the course of last year, 75 different students during 4th grade came to enrichment for some unit. And we have kids that some of them have IEPs, some of them have one-on-one para support because of certain things, but they belong in that enrichment group and they come and they do great. So I'm excited and proud for what we do there. So I was only supposed to have 5 minutes, so.
Amy does an amazing job because these kids really push, so it's so interesting to be in there, and they'll have the suggestions, she says it sort of lightly, but to be able to take what they're asking and run with it is a gift that not everybody has. It's fantastic for them. I also wanted to mention what's going on in the regular classroom while this is happening. Because now for the regular ed math teacher, when 4 or 5 students leave their room, now they have some students that did not do as well on the pretest. So what an opportunity that they can pre-teach a topic that's coming up, or actually teach knowing that the students are gone, do not need this instruction. Or they might do small groups, reteaching, and then an unexpected surprise that I think is one of the favorite of the teachers is that when those 4 or 5 quick students are gone, and I'm sure you as a learner sort of know that kid from whatever course it was for you, that they sort of can take charge in the classroom. When they're gone, we've got new leaders in the classroom, and that is, I would say, the most, what's the teachers like the most about this program is so the new leaders in the classroom for that time.
I have to give a, huge shout out to Carol and to Amy, because this was a very innovative approach when we first started it. And the idea and the philosophy behind it is that everybody has moments where they have gifts and that they have a chance to shine, but also it takes into perspective, not only this idea of enrichment, but also that we're all in the seat of learning, no matter where we are in terms of our strengths as well. So I think that Amy's balance in the classroom has been very genuine, and it's life skills that she's teaching precocious learners as well. And they are truly getting enriched. And what we have found, and Carol works closely with the high school as well, I have to give Carol a shout out. They look at data all the time as to what happens. And when kids advance math levels too quickly, they actually don't sustain in the high school. They actually don't make it to the top level courses many times because they burn out. So this model has been really, really effective for our learners. And I think that one of the queries that we got today, I believe Dr. Cook, was regarding this model and whether or not it would be continuing. So I think it definitely has been impactful, and I also appreciate how Amy and Carol work together very closely to make sure they're current in the methodology going on in the classrooms and mathematics, because they're growing like crazy too, and they're doing a lot of crazy math things in all of the classrooms, and you could tell by our math scores they're doing quite well. So it takes a lot of maneuvering to keep ahead of everything. So the flexibility is appreciated as well.
So it wasn't clear to me when you started your presentation and through most of your presentation as to who this population is. Because you're doing assessments initially and then you're identifying students. So I'm listening on the first part and I'm going, all right, is this students that have gone through the curriculum too quickly? And so, we're trying to serve them and enriching their experience with additional, or is the students that have identified gaps in the learning and we're trying to, fill those gaps, or is it a combination of both? But it sounds like it's primarily students that, based on the assessments, you identify gaps and you're using the enrichment time to address those gaps. Is that accurate?
No, I'm sorry. So this is students that, because looking at the pretest, which is very similar to the post-test, the end of units, they know a lot of the material already. Not all of it, usually, but just a big chunk of the material they already know. So instead of having them in the classroom full-time, with the teacher trying to differentiate 90% of the time if they know 90% of the material, instead they leave the class every other day to get extensions, to get more. So they don't have, they're the strong student that knows this topic or can learn it very quickly. So the opposite.
But they're not identified all year. They're identified unit by unit.
Yeah, that's the best part of it. I mean, when we were kids, if you were on the EPIC program, enrichment program for intellectual children, or gifted, talented, or whatever, you got pulled out of class, kids are calling you brainiac, and you were identified in a negative pigeonhole way, Although once you got to the enrichment room, you felt proud of yourself and you were among peers. But I love the fact that every student has an opportunity on a unit by unit basis to get into that room. And because of that, the kids that get into the room, it's a larger, group within the class. So you don't get that, those kids are special.
Right.
I'm special too sometimes.
Right.
And there's that self-awareness, I think, that I have strengths, I have not such strong areas. But, learning, being pushed in that room to fail and to make mistakes and to work your way through it. I think helps them also on their weaker units,
Right.
it seems to me. So I love this model.
Thank you.
And it does give the other kids something to aspire to,
Pardon?
something to aspire to. the other kids.
Mhm.
If they wanna go to that road.
And this is not a curriculum factor, but the way we structure it right now as the math specialist in the building. Actually, the room they come to is the same room that I also bring other students to for special extra help. So my math room is just a bonus math room. It isn't the advanced math room, and then there's a different room for the
Yeah.
struggle math. It's just the extra math room. And it's amazing the
Yeah.
degree to which the kids are not always clear at why kids are coming or going to that room for which reason.
Yeah.
And that's good. I
Yeah.
think, you know what, you don't need to know why he's coming. They come, and it may not always be the case that it's the same individual doing that, but it is nice that at this time, it is actually a room that's just a bonus math room that does other stuff, so.
Great job. Thank you. We're moving on to music. Lee, I'll invite you up. Nice.
Thank
You're welcome to
Thank you.
stay, you're welcome to the
Thanks.
road.
Thank
you.
Oh, I'm here.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Leah Stillman, you recall, was
See you,
leading
Rob.
the work in music and performing arts theater as well. So she has been before the board during the entire curriculum revision cycle. These are some courses that remained to be adopted. They were ones that were being worked on, and it was just a lot of adoptions during the course of performing arts. So the team is back at it,
Alright, I'm back. And this is it, these are the last four. Next time you'll see me, it'll be for revisions. probably. It's funny, as we're finishing these courses, we're already thinking about revisions of the other ones, so which is good, everything's always a work in progress, so yeah, absolutely. So presenting 4 courses for you tonight. I'm gonna start with the lowest grade. I have 3 middle school courses for Folsom and 1 high school course to be approved tonight. The first one is actually the course that I teach. It's the 7th and 8th grade chorus. As with all the other performance ensemble based courses at Polson, they're written on a 7-8. They kind of span 2 years worth with different content within the standards addressed depending on where the students are. As you know, I believe already, but I'll reiterate, our students can come into our performance-based ensembles at Polson anytime, and they can pick up where they are and we will meet them where they're at. So a lot of the kind of stage 2 measurables and stage 3 lessons, learning plans, have different choices based on where a student is and what's going to be successful for them in terms of getting them to next level. So this is one of those courses. So course grade 7-8 is a performance-based course. It is 4 units. We focus on vocal technique, balance and blend within the ensemble, learning how to read a choral score. If you don't know what a score is, that is the formal word for the music in front of them. So really, not only just reading it, but understanding what the symbols mean and what the theory behind it is. And my goal is really that students leave the course not being able to just sing by rote, by ear, but really understand where they can go pick up a piece of music and be able to read it and understand it and perform it. So that's where Unit 3 comes in. And Unit 4, musical expression and ensemble performance. We put on in the 7th and 8th grade 2 public performances per year. And we've actually branched off now into some other performances. We bridged the gap with the high school, and Ron and I worked together to do some collaborative pieces to really push these kids to kind of be a part of the program and really understand from. So this course builds on grade 6, which is our foundational curriculum. Grade 6 is the first year that students can pick vocal music as an elective choice. Like I said, though, any student can come into this course and still come in on ground level. They learn to sing with proper form, focusing on intermediate skills, where grade 6 really focuses on the basic skills, not only physically, but mentally, within the vocal game. And they're really learning ensemble skills. So yes, they're learning to sing individually, but they're really learning to sing as a group and what that means. And that's a whole teamwork approach with our collective intelligence, and really the self-awareness within the ensemble has a big part in it. So that's the chorus. That's the chorus course. Next, we have acting for theater. There's 2 grade 8 options in the theater program at Polson. There's acting for the theater, and then the next one, which I'll go through in a minute, which is musical theater. The students, again, this is an elective, this is a choice. And they look a little bit similar but different in terms of the content that's in each one. Acting for the theater follows, and again, you don't have to take them, but if they take grade 7, which is more personalized, really how to be an actor, or and now they go to grade 8, and now it's the ensemble piece within how do I look in the ensemble, in the theater ensemble. So they're going to utilize their knowledge of rehearsal process, and they're going to bring a play from script to stage. Both of these courses in grade 8 include a formal performance in the spring for the community, and really showcasing all that they've learned within the course. They learn how to prepare for an audition. That's how the class starts. Musical theater also. So they're actually learning how to audition, and then they audition, and then they get their role, and then they have to learn how to become that character. And what does that look like, both on stage and off stage, and within the whole play itself, and they go through that whole piece. And then in April we do a performance in the evening, and then their final unit, which for both 8th grade courses is very similar. They actually independently create and perform a 10-minute play.
So this isn't what's already here now?
It is, but we haven't had
I've
the.
been to a couple of those.
Right, so it
Yeah.
is, we haven't had them officially for adopted.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
grade 6 and 7 was already
Right,
adopted.
right, okay.
Yeah, so it's similar,
Yeah.
exactly what we've been doing. And they're basically learning how to take their knowledge of theater and apply it independently within their role. So that's the grade 8 acting for the theater.
Can I ask,
Sure.
one of the big challenges with theater is the jealousies that arise as between who gets what part and what role. And how much speaking you get to do versus other people or singing. Is that addressed in the class, like the teamwork aspect, the ensemble aspect, maybe your friend this time, but then it could be you the next time?
Good question. So I will tell you, the first unit, which is really great, is a small group project. So the kids are in groups, and they really all get to play a bigger role within that group because it's a smaller group project. So they get a taste of that, and then they have their audition process, and the teachers are really mindful to pick literature for stage that really gives every child a chance to have their part, whatever that looks like. In the musical theater world, we have so many students that are already involved with the Arts Barn and Kids Connection and all these other outside groups. So you do have, it's not always a level playing field just in terms of where their experience is, right?
Yeah.
So to be able to find, we have kids that'll come in and they want to be part of the process, and they really want to be part of the theater, but they don't want to be in that huge role. And there's always a spot for them, maybe a smaller role, and they do some of the tech side of things. And so teachers are really good about being mindful and making sure that the students feel good about where they are. And there is and they work on a lot of self-assessment, which I think the self-assessment piece, when they're assessing each other, is really good for performing arts where sometimes it does become that I'm better than you, or that sort of thing. It kind of crushes that because you're all on this level playing field, you all have the same expectations and and to be able to give that critical feedback to each other as students is huge. And I think that takes away some of that piece.
So the audition process is a big one.
It really is, yeah. This year we're doing Mary Poppins, yeah.
I know my
So-
daughter wants to be in the background.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm actually co-teaching the musical theater course this year, which has been fun. So we have the music end and then the performance end. That's been great.
We're stuck here.
Oh,
Got it. Yeah.
It's always that. It's always that.
So in this musical theater, I touched on a little bit, it's similar in the fact that they are auditioning and putting a performance on. It looks a little different because there's more choreography and like this year, Seth, like you were asking about the parts and this and that. We have some kids who dance outside of school, and we assigned some dance captains, and they're actually writing over 50% of the choreography that's going to be on stage. And they're working with the students together. So we try and build off their strong points. In the musical theater unit for grade 8, there's a 7th grade musical theater course and an 8th grade musical theater course. In the 7th grade, the first unit is not this is composers of the musical, it's the actual directors and what the genres of musicals look like across generations. When you get to 8th grade, now they're looking at the musical composers and how they differ, and they actually study one musical composer in a small group, and they come up with some choreography on one of their songs, and they perform it for the class, and they have to give a presentation on the background of that musical composer, so it gives them a little bit more of a taste into the history of musical theater also, which is great. Again, course culminates with a live performance, different musicals chosen every year, and teachers very good about choosing musicals based on not only what does the cast look like this year. This year we have over 70 students involved because 7th grade musical theater is the ensemble for the musical, and then the 8th grade has the more of the lead. So it's a lot of kids. So you kind of look at which musical is going to fit with what we have and that sort of thing. And this year is Mary Poppins, so it's a fun one. All right, now we go up to high school. This is the last course for adoption up in the high school. This is the course that's the kind of the precursor to AP music theory, which we adopted for the first time. And it's the first AP course that the music department's offering, and it's going great. So this course is like almost the prereq to it. Not always. You can get into AP music theory if you have the background and the teacher recommendation, but most students will take this first. This is your ground level music theory course for high school. It goes over reading music on the staff, or the treble and bass clef, as we call it, the grand staff. It goes into key signatures and scales and chords and learning how to construct chords and then learning how to then take that, compose your own melody and harmony. It's designed to develop students' visual and oral understanding of structure and music. So there's a listening component and there's writing component. So they're learning how to write, and then they also have to learn how to listen for different chords and what does that look like? Is this a major chord or a minor chord? I mean, but it is really the foundation on the high school level for theory. They learn to construct all of the things and the basic and including the skill. Once they learn the skill notation, then they're really learning how to put it onto the staff on their own. And the great thing is it's taught in our math lab. So not only do the students have access to all this great software, but they have these keyboards that then they can take what they've written and really apply it. So so they undergo ear training, and it's their foundation for theory. And if they choose to continue, we have a lot of students even that aren't involved in music ensembles that will take this. And if they choose to continue, then they can take the AP course and get college credit afterwards. So. Sure.
Any questions for Leah?
Quick and efficient.
Thank you.
Yeah, really.
Thank you.
It was like for me, this has been a long road.
I know.
Lots of courses.
We are getting this done.
Yeah,
I'm so glad, right, exactly.
I mean, I would just add, it's impressive to me how advanced they get at middle ages. You know, not even high school yet,
Right.
and they're really learning theory and composition and, you know, ensemble and all of that stuff in both acting and music. It's great.
And I know this isn't the total adoption that we did for music and theater a few years ago, but Leah also was champion of placing digital music into our courses too. And all of the training that went along with that, which was extensive because we weren't trained in digital music. And she found the right trainers, brought them in over time, and we're pleased that that enrollment has gone really well. In digital
Really
music.
well.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll add another course, especially.
Right, yeah,
Like
it's
a
a-
level two.
so it's advancing.
It's interesting with the side note with the music tech course. We write this course as, you know, we're kind of on the other end of the age bracket here, right? So we write these courses and then these kids are so advanced that the first trimester we taught the intro to music technology, they blew through everything so quickly because the kids are so technologically advanced that we're already like, we have spreadsheets and Google Docs open to what are we adding to this, and we've had to kind of beef up things, and it's really cool to see the students kind of in their, I'll say it, their own element of technology and really what they can do with the music end. It's been a great boost to the program.
Which, what a perfect lead to this next meeting. Thank you, Leah. But you know, we've been, of course, working on our capacities, our profile of a graduate as an entire system. And of course, the independent study class is part of that. So I'm gonna have Michelle kind of go over what you're looking at right here, because there is a musical component.
There is. So I had the fun privilege of going with Gail, not that long ago, and TJ to a NEAS presentation, and we got to present some of this to people from all over the world, really. But this is very exciting. What you're seeing here are projects that our students at Daniel Hand have created on their own. So you can see that little box on the right-hand corner, and I'm taking away from my presentation, I think I'm doing later on this year, but I'll spill the beans right now. So there was a high school student who felt that she had dealt with some pretty significant grief, losing, I don't know if it was a parent or someone, you know, that she loved. So she created this little box, and I'm gonna give a little background of it first, and I'll tell you why she did that. So this is independent project that you're looking at. Students are given an opportunity at the end in 11th or 12th grade to create an independent project. So part of her independent project through Profile of a Graduate was to create this box that has little pieces of advice for students dealing with grief. What we did was that box is now living in each of the schools. So if other students in Madison are dealing with grief, they can open this box and get some of those words of wisdom. And each one of these projects you see up here, even the cornhole boards that you see, the boys created that in the Fab Lab. This is really our Profile of a Graduate, that independent project that students at the end of their Daniel Hand career have the opportunity to really shine and to think about what their passion project is, something that they love, and put it to work. So each of these little pictures tell a story. On the left-hand corner, we have a student who really was creative and artistic and wanted to create jewelry to be able to, you know, sell, and that's what she did. TJ told me the story about the guitar. I believe, and Gail helped me, but this student didn't have all the pieces she needed to create. This is a
Funding. Yeah, some of the
for
funding.
a guitar, to create that guitar. The kid made the guitar, and yeah. And then I think she
And now
made-
several others.
and several others, yeah. You know, the TEDx, that was such a big hit here. That I didn't realize until I went through this NEAS presentation and really got to talk to TJ, but that was part of the independent project. That student put forth that proposal junior year as part of an independent project, or it didn't get like, you know, take that senior year. She gets to host a TEDx at Daniel Hand High School. I mean, that's just incredible.
It goes back to that perseverance you heard about
Yeah.
math. This student persevered after the course was done,
Yeah.
reapplied.
And then the top, which during our NEAS presentation, we were able to press play as people from all over the world are coming into our workshop to hear this live performance that student that's conducting the, I'm not gonna use musical terms for,
Jeffrey Lee.
yeah,
Yeah.
do you know the story? Yeah, I mean,
Jeffrey Lee.
he wrote all the music for the symphony that was then performed. So basically what we're saying is, this is kind of our, oh, and I don't wanna forget Love Letters, that was a book written and published by one of our students as well. So these are just some of the projects, I mean, we can go on and on and on. That independent project in 11th and 12th grade is so powerful, can be so powerful for students where they get to pick that capacity and really kind of let it drive the thing that they want to. So moving forward, here we are. One of the things Gail and I started talking about and that I was charged with is, when do we formally introduce students to our profile of a graduate? Is there a time that we actually say to students, these 10, capacities are something that we really value in Madison, and we hope that you take with you as you leave here? And the answer was, we don't ever really formally, there's kids are starting that work in kindergarten, but we're not necessarily ever bringing it to the forefront. So Gail asked that we thought 4th grade was like the sweet spot of letting kids understand. So let me just bring you to this next slide here.
I would say we'd start in pre-K, but the.
I agree. I
Right.
think we could do that, right? There's so
Absolutely.
many things that so we did pick 4 and 5, and I don't, Gail, I think we thought,
So 4 and 5, one of our big cornerstone assessments for profile of a graduate, we have one in grade 2, and then we have one in grade 4, that's an interdisciplinary one that really is a theme that carries them through all year. So we felt that it was really crucial for them to understand why they were working so extensively on this question that they were struggling with. So for 4 and 5, the charge was to develop a mini unit to start out the year that would formally say each day, this is inquiry and this is idea generation, and to give space and time in responsive classroom setting mainly to start to have kids develop a better awareness. They have an awareness, they get feedback all the time on this, but they don't realize how it fits into their future until this explicit moment of teaching.
so we're doing it through responsive classroom because it's a structure that we already have in place. And so I worked earlier this fall with Ashley Lunn and Rachel Secondino. We attended a workshop with Allison Zamuda and Benna Kalik on storyboarding curriculum. That's where you see these little mini storyboards. And it kind of sparked our interest in how can we tell this story of our capacities to students through a way that might make sense to them. So here's all of our work that we put together, and you can see the components of the morning meeting, the message, then they do some sort of activity, a greeting, a share, and each of the things we picked were very, very specific and can help kids realize, wow, I'm really practicing the idea of citizenship here when I think about how can I be a respectful member of our morning meeting. That's citizenship. That's part of what we're talking about. So we were trying to bring it to their awareness. So we'll start this in the fall of next year. I think it was, when we talked to 4th grade about it, they were super excited. And so we'll start that next year. We'll see how it goes. I know Gail will say it's not being put into a UBD design, so it wouldn't look like our units per se, but this is the idea. Any questions about that?
How was that shared with the teachers so that it becomes part of the culture of what we do?
That's a great question. So we will be talking, teachers, none of this will be new to teachers. I do think sometimes we have to think about what are we already doing? We're practicing this all the time. It almost feels like self-awareness, collective intelligence. We're always doing those things. We value that here in Madison. That's something that's ingrained in the work I think we do day to day in all of our content areas. I think we need to find opportunities. Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, and 2 teachers wrote it, so it's not like teachers from the grade level didn't write it, they were in it, and they were with Michelle, how many days?
Oh,
doing
we
it?
did, well, we did. Yeah,
Probably about 5
days.
days or 6
We did a
days
few
of
days
work,
brainstorm.
so it's certainly something that they'll anticipate, but I haven't met with 4th and 5th grade teachers about some of the work that we're gonna be doing going forth. Recently, we met, I think, in December with all of them. And then I think in November as well, where I met with them too. And Michelle's been meeting with them all along, so we have a lot of work that we're doing together collectively over a lot of different topics.
I think it will build, I think it will be well
You know,
received, teachers are.
So this responsive classroom, a lot of 4th and 5th grade teachers set responsive classroom as a goal this year. Because it is not something that they have been practicing actively. And something that they will be doing, so they are learning more about responsive classroom, so it does fit within that goal that they've been developing as a team.
You know, I think this, you know, it's a very important shift. You know, there've been multiple presentations over years that we feel pretty confident that the district has thoroughly embraced the profiles of the graduate and has done that for years, but what we're talking about now is something different, which is, you know, very deliberately involving the student learners and their own self-awareness in that process by identifying this is what we're doing and this is what we're focusing on, this is why, which I think is, you know, is absolutely critical. So, you know, for that step to become embedded in the culture, you know, from my perspective, there has to be a very deliberate process, you know, so. That's why I asked
Steve, when I just want to comment that I know that other districts aren't doing this type of stuff. Maybe there are some that are, but the fact that our district takes this approach of deliberation, where we introduce the students to what we're trying to teach them, and we explain to them why we give context, right? Like, you know, when I was helping my kids with some of their projects in this district, there was a rubric. We never got a rubric when we were kids, you know? How we would get an A or a B on a paper or a project was like a big mystery. We never knew what the purpose of the project. Nobody sat down and said, here's what we're learning and here's why. And here's how it fits in to other stuff you're learning, right? And why it's important to know. And that's what this does. And I know that I would have been so much more excited about my education going through it. And I was a decent student, but I would have been even more excited if I was brought into the secret. What's the magic behind what we're learning? And that's what all of this is, and it's just amazing. So it's great work, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Social studies, moving right along.
You've seen every topic now almost.
I've gotten to learn a little bit about a lot, so here we go, so social studies, so recent, and we'll, there may be more to come on this, but there's new standards that came out in 2023. They're called the Connecticut Elementary and Secondary Social Studies Standards. So 3rd grade is kind of where we started, and we did, and I'll show you in the next slide just so I can reference that. Those are the new standards on the left. You know, and part of my role is really kind of thinking about, you know, if we were to audit things, where are we in line and where aren't we? So one of the things for sure that we weren't, you know, covering, I think, to the level of degree that we could be, is that cultural communities in Connecticut present and past. So, and you'll see the focus for grade 3 is Connecticut history. It's all focused on Connecticut. Then we move to grade 4 and grade 5, and there's different. Grade 4 is going to be geography, and grade 5 is on the American Revolution. But the focus in 3rd grade is Connecticut's history and government. So greatest, unit 1 had the greatest changes to it, with a focus on how Native American tribes preserve their cultural identity over time. And part of that, and Gail, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, there is some legislative, you know, directive around those pieces, so we have to make sure that they're in our curriculum. So that was part of what my charge was, is to see where we are, you know, falling short and where we need to make some changes. Teachers were really excited. We really streamlined, kind of found great and more updated resources, because as these standards were released, as were some resources. So we just want to be current. Connecticut history, that exploring Connecticut's history, again, other than making sure our resources are up to date and making some changes to assessments, That's all that was done there, and then we had Connecticut's government. So there was an audit done, and mostly, you know, not anything too major on the last 2 units, other than like assessment changes and things like that, but I had representation from both Ryerson and Jeffrey there working on that this summer. And it finally went through CRC, and that's why we're here tonight. So that's it for social studies. Any questions? on
It
that?
for now, for
For
social
now.
studies.
Yeah. Grade 4 and grade 5 are coming.
I will just add that
Yeah.
CABE has a seminar, a free seminar for board members coming up, I think next week. That you can do online about the new social studies curriculum standards.
There are, there's some changes, it is interesting to see how things ebb and flow, and for sure, there will be for grade 4 and 5, some other changes that will be coming down the.
The old standards were very general, and they had more of, maybe a philosophical lean on them, and then this revision came out with very specific content, so it is causing a shift and a re-examination, and, so we're going in and doing what we do, we're auditing and having our teachers around the table, and we're ready, so you'll see more of that work coming forth. So I want to thank Michelle for learning so much about science, social studies, nutrition, and all those other things.
This happened, these world language changes, Jen wanted to be here tonight, but she couldn't, happened this summer, and again, went through CRC this fall, and that's why we're here tonight, but Latin 2 was with Davy Bryan and Jenna Guzzi, and American Sign Language was written with Kathleen Erickson, our sign teacher, and Jenna Guzzi. So I'm not gonna, I do wanna read the notes that Jen gave me so that I'm very accurate in what some of the changes were. Here's an overview. So for Latin 2, last year they incorporated chapters 1 through 9 of the novel that they work on, Sotterani 1 into Latin 1. This year they incorporated the rest of the textbook, chapters 10 through 14, into Latin 2 for supplemental cultural readings and vocabulary and grammar practice. She says that the thematic units were retained from previously adopted curriculum, but the Cambridge Latin material was removed due to cultural insensitivity. So there was some level of audit in there. Additionally, some PVAs were revised to reflect the assessments developed in Innovation Lab. For example, in Unit 3, students will be asked to create an op-ed as a historian using historical facts of evidence of potential patterns for future events. And Unit 4 is written as an optional unit that would give students a jump start in Latin 3. But would not be detrimental if they were not, if there were not time in a given year. It hones the skills that they've already had that will be reviewed and expanded in Latin 3, namely diagramming. And anybody that knows Davy Bryan, he's a great curriculum person to have around the table, and they were just busy this summer getting this all together. So that's exciting. And then American Sign Language 2, so ASL 1, let me go to the next. ASL 1 covers lessons 1 through 5 of that book that you see there called Signing Naturally. ASL 2, which is the course that we're talking about now, begins with lesson 6 and progresses through lesson 10, covering storytelling structures, clothing, problem solving, and shopping. Each unit features interpretive and expressive activities and assessments, as well as a PVA. PVAs are meant to be fun applications of the structures and vocabulary learned, and include activities such as a fashion show or an overly dramatized telenovela. In addition to language acquisition, each unit has a component of, this part I just think is great, of deaf culture. For example, in the second half of the course, students participate in book clubs that allow them to connect aspects of deaf culture, but also consider the needs and interests of individual students. Books featured this year are El Defo by C.C. Bell, which is fabulous, and The Silence Between Us by Alison Gervais. Both are stories about deaf students who are attending a hearing school for the first time, but the two novels have very different lexile levels and representations of the struggles of those main characters. So I did sit with this group for a while this summer. It was my first experience over at the high school in this position, so I was a great listener, and both Kathleen and Jen worked so hard to make sure that we can really grow the American Sign Language course to have an additional ASL too. So very passionate.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Well, kudos to all the teachers that have sat around the table. I know the next slide are all our other friends that maybe we didn't mention that came around the table, and obviously more to come. So, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Do we have any public comment? Yes.
I'm Alexia Kepes-Volpe from 454 Bartlett Drive, and I'm just curious, given the new information around the curriculum proposed for 4th and 5th graders next year and the reductions in related arts, how the curriculum committee was aware of that or involved in some of those decisions.
I would like to just, first of all, start by saying the curriculum committee and the board in general have been updated over time, like as soon as, you know, the referendum passed, and even in advance of that, in February of 22. That there would be a decision point coming up at some point, if you're gonna switch from an intermediate school model to a pre-K to 5 school model. And that decision point has been on our radar. We view that decision point as more of an instructional scheduling, which is within the aegis of the district and the administration and the teachers, more than an actual curriculum. It impacts curriculum indirectly, but it's not hard curriculum per se. So this this committee and the board in general has been updated on occasion that this, you know, there's a decision point coming. This is what it's about. We have not been a direct part, because none of us are experts in any of this. I mean, we rely on our educators to do the actual planning of instructional time. So I hope that helps to answer your
Was there
question.
any feedback from parents or even students that was taken into account in the
Yeah,
decision?
well, here's how I would address that. I understand there's a whole bunch of concern right now. I would be concerned if my child was that age. My kids are out of school now.
Or younger?
Yeah, and or younger. It's understandable. And you know, we do have confidence that the decision making that goes on is highly sensitive to the needs of the students. You know, highly sensitive to the full context of what they need and not just, you know, like maybe a narrow area of focus like related arts. But also there's a bit of a concern from on our part that maybe there's again, understandably, there's a bit of a jumping of the gun here. I think we haven't even been able to fully finalize and present the model that appears to be, you know, implemented, to be being planned for implementation. So you know, there's been a parent information session set for the 4th grade parents in particular, which is the cohort most impacted,
Which my
on
son is in
January
that cohort,
23rd.
yeah.
And then there's gonna be additional, you know, like a general one for the whole school community at each of the schools after that. This is still, I know that parents have claimed and asserted that this was sprung last minute. There were several reasons why this decision had to be delayed until now, and that the parents would be informed after the teachers are informed, and after the board is informed. So again, the cart's a little bit before the horse, you know, so the cart got out of the barn, maybe is a better way to put it. But I would just ask that folks give grace and allow the district administration and staff to kind of work through this with the parents and the school communities, to give better context, to give reasoning, and to hear concerns and to maybe manipulate a little bit to the extent we can. And that's where we are.
I'm sort of hearing two things. I'm hearing that it's not the jurisdiction of the board to talk about something that's not the core curriculum, that accurate.
Well,
Related arts is not the core
it's-
curriculum, is that what? I'm
yeah,
hearing?
this board has long taken the position that instructional scheduling is within the aegis of the district and not the board.
So we're identifying.
It's
reduction to
delegated.
Related arts as scheduling, is that correct?
No, because we're not getting rid of all related arts. I mean, that the board would have a big problem with. It's a manipulation of the time in order to fit a very complex scheduling model, as I understand it. And so, again, I'm not an expert. I don't think anyone here is an expert in instructional scheduling. I think Steve might have had and Kathy might have had some experience assisting with that stuff in the past, but it's a delegation of authority from the board through the superintendent to the district to address instructional scheduling model.
And the expectation is that that will be presented at some point in the future, or because it certainly feels like, I know information is scarce, and that's really part of the problem here. Parents like us feel like we're blindsided by decisions that actually appear to be fully baked. And this feels like just an exercise to say we'll accept public comment, just to pacify concerned parents when decisions are really already made. We basically just found that out. So that's what it feels like. I hope that's not true. I trust in our leadership. In fact, it's the first meeting that I've ever attended. I know you probably don't get a whole lot of attendance at these meetings for good reason. We do make great decisions in this town when it comes to education. It's why most of us are here, especially with school age kids that have moved in within the last few years. That's why we're here. We trust this group and our, leadership within the school to make the best decisions on behalf of our students. I'm sure there is a ton of data that says related arts helps with some of the things that are very important to our town, such as the quality of our graduates. And while I feel like I hear there is scheduling issues that need to be overcome, pulling programs away from our students that have been proven to improve their overall success as a graduate is a big problem and should be part of the curriculum. It should be part of the discussion and should be part of the public comment. So I don't know all the processes. In the past few days, I've tried to learn what should be happening in these types of decisions, but I don't have the time to figure it all out. And I apologize if, we're saying things that maybe we should have already known, but we are very concerned. We will, of course, also be attending the other meeting, but I wanted to see this meeting and how this type of stuff goes. And it does look like we do put a lot of rigor around the curriculum that we put forward, but it seems like a little bit of a cop-out to say that scheduling is the jurisdiction of the school's leadership and not of the Board of Ed when it directly impacts the education. Thank you.
Anybody else? Steve, Kathy,
Anyone
anybody have any?
online, Zoe?
Any member of the public who is online would like to speak, please use the raise your hand feature now.
Barring any other comment, it is now 6:38 and we will adjourn. Thank you very much.